Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Mr. Nasser, for such a nice introduction. Uh, Nadra Pandwani and members of KCFR, Mr. Kadir Jafar, Marshal Raz, and others, and our friend there, and diplomats, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I was sitting there thinking that perhaps I'm the only person in this room who have there in 1965 when then I said Commodore Sadid Malik was with me in the military academy at that time. 61 years and 2 days ago, on 14th May 1964, I entered the Pakistan military academy. I did not know at 16 that I would be fighting a war shortly past the age of 17. And thereafter, in 71, I was in no man's land, having a Punjabi father and a Bengali mother, and having my father, Kattar Punjabi, have raised the East Bengal Regiment, and from my mother's side, my granduncles, Sarwardi, Mr. J. Rahim, and of course Muhammad Ali Bogra. So it was not a nice place to be in 1971. It was worse to be in a prisoner of war camp in 1971. And I had the honor of being the first Pakistani prisoner of war to escape from India in 71. And I carried back many memories. And the first memory was, and I must tell you, this is something you must know, that we were trained very, very in a narrow this thing. It was the only good Indian is a dead Indian. But I came out, and when I was coming and I was escaping there, I had help from so many Indians who, of course, did not know who I am. But I came away, and when I wrote a book, I apologized. I said this was very wrong of me to think that. The people of South Asia need peace very badly, and they need peace despite the Hindutva chauvinism that is now rampant inside India. We're talking about what happened in 1962. Kashmir, during India's China war, when India had given instructions, and there are headlines of 10 days of headlines in India. The Prime Minister gives Jawans the order to throw the Chinese out of NEFA, Northeast Frontier Agency, and Ladakh. And they went to throw the Chinese out and stared defeat within 10 days. And one of those things about that was that Kashmir was there for the taking. There were no Indian troops left in Kashmir. And it was the first time the Americans bailed the Indians out. And they bailed them out by prevailing on Field Marshal Ayub Khan to say that we will have talks after this crisis is over, and we will have substantive talks, and we will settle the Kashmir dispute. Never happened. The talks did take place, they went nowhere. So, and in the meantime, and a lot of people don't know this, even though India was a part of the Soviet bloc, so to say, at that time in the Cold War, Four mountain divisions were equipped by air from United States. Four mountain divisions, and aircraft came into. At that time, there was these star, this thing, etc. They used to C-141s. They were landing in Calcutta every 10 minutes with equipment. Ultimately, the US turned them down when they asked for submarines to fight the Chinese in the Himalayas. And they said, you don't need submarines. However, by this time, um, the chance was lost. I go flash forward to May 7th, 2025. It was an all out Indian offensive. They started probing with drones, and they tried. But I can't speak about it much. I'm sure Air Marshal Riaz will give a better deal. But I suppose what 70 aircraft were pitted against 30 Pakistani aircraft. What they didn't reckon with was the equipment in the hands of the Pakistanis, where they're. And I'm sorry that my friend Alexis is not here from the French. That thing about, so I may be forgiven about the Rafale a little bit. All right, okay. But the point is that they were first of all jammed, and then beyond BBR, the J-10 missiles and the BBR beyond visual range missiles took them out, and whether they were 3 Rafales or 2 Rafales, it effectively grounded the Indian Air Force, right? And Pakistan really believed that the worst was over. It didn't happen. 8th, the 9th went, and they kept on the drone attacks. But May 10th, early morning, at 2:55, the BrahMos missiles attacks came in. And when the BrahMos missiles attack came in, Pakistan then was given the go-ahead. The Pakistan Armed Forces were given the go-ahead to respond. And they did respond. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you back to June 1987. June 1987, when in a 6-day war, Israel thereafter became the dominant power in the region. 1987, in a 6-day war. May I be forgiven in saying that the Pakistani Air Force, in a 6-hour war, did the same thing. I may be forgiven. The United Arab Emirates King was trained as a combat pilot in Pakistan. The brother of MBS, who was a defense minister, was trained as a combat pilot in Pakistan. And yet, what happened? What was the wake-up call they got in the morning on May 10th? That India was not the dominant power in the region. It was a myth that was blown away. And that myth was blown away by a quote from an Indian general. An Indian general on television made this tremendous quote. He says, I do not mind fighting the Chinese with the Chinese equipment, but I am worried about the Pakistanis with Chinese equipment. So you have a lot of this thing, etc. You have actual combat. I said on the morning of May 10th, when this was going on, I said, we should not go into ceasefire. We lose on the negotiating table, but we have won on the battlefield. And I think that is very apparent because now the Indians are claiming victory. At least the propaganda. Of course, defense analyst, including the rabidly anti-Pakistan Christian Fair. She has said bakwas. She said the Indian claim is bakwas. They use the word bakwas. Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are out in May 28th or 29th, 1998. We went out of the nuclear closet because Pokhran blast allowed us to come out of the nuclear closet. We are now out of the strategic closet. We are now, despite ourselves, and we have a lot of faults, despite ourselves, we are a force to reckon with. Now it's up to our leaders to ensure that the blood and courage of our armed forces is not wasted. You have only seen a little bit of it. I know a little bit more because in the line of along the line of control, a lot of artillery exchanges and small exchanges took place, and they were quite bloody. But of course, it was overshadowed by this, but much more advanced warfare. I say this to you that we want peace with India. I am one of those who really believe in that. But I do not think we're going to have peace with India. After 12 years, I got a visa for Bangladesh. My only sister is buried there. I went on a private visit. I had the occasion to meet a lot of people. And I heard things which I had written about 30 years ago. And I was only echoing something, a strategic initiative of the Qaid-e-Azam when Sher Bangla, Fazlul Abul Hashim and Sarawardi went to him and said, let us have a greater Bengal to go with the western side. And he gave them the go-ahead, but on a flimsy plea. And it was part of the Mountbatten plan, by the way. It's on record. But that didn't happen. The second thing is when he went and requested Tara Singh that you're asking for Sikhistan, ask for Khalistan. He invented the word Khalistan. Ask for Khalistan. And if we had Khalistan, the Kashmir dispute would not have happened. And the water dispute would not have happened. Right? But unfortunately, that went against us. Now, 2-3 days ago, China, which was forced into a war in 1962, and in 10 days they decimated the Indian Eastern Command. And so much so that I, as a young student, this is 1962, I was a student in Sylhet, and my father was posted there. We saw thousands of Indian army men come across, leave across the border, throw down their arms and come across the border for sanctuary into East Pakistan. And the Chinese stopped at foothills. And unilaterally declared a ceasefire. And then later on, 6 or 10 weeks later, polished all their equipment and gave them back NEFA. And after having got NEFA back, which was disputed territory even then, right? In 1987, India took advantage of the turmoil within China and annexed NEFA and called it Arunachal Pradesh. China has now claimed Arunachal Pradesh. And every television station of Bangladesh today is asking for annexation of Assam. Right? I mean, the analysts at least there. And in 1971, at the height of the war, Pakistan had three and a half lightly equipped divisions fighting there. Three and a half. Without proper equipment, short of artillery, short of tanks. Today, why does Bangladesh have 10 divisions? Why does Bangladesh have 10 divisions? Five of the divisions within 5 miles of the border. Right? And all the Indian lines of communication are within a mile of the border. All the Indian lines of communication, starting from Calcutta, going up to Darjeeling, crossing over to the Chicken's Neck, coming down to Shillong, they're within 1 mile of the border. Right? So you have a situation here. I'm not saying that encouraging Bangladesh to take over Assam. I'm not encouraging the Sikhs to keep on asking for Khalistan. But I'm saying this to you: enough is enough. If they hit our dams, artillery strikes, but they did hit our dams. Before that, they had abrogated the Indus Water Treaty, which they had no sovereign right to do so. Then symbolically, we should have hit the Baglia Dam to free the Chenab, and we should have hit the Kishan Ganga to free the Jhelum. Symbolically, at least, we should have done that. So that thing, because today, all over the world, they're talking a different language. Everybody knows they're telling lies, but there's a limit to it. There are a lot of other people, experts, my friends, who are much more, let's say, much better educated than me. I am a simple graduate of the Pakistan Military Academy. Most of my graduation were done at the Liasi Mosque in a 9 mile run when we used to take a drink of water there in the 8th mile. So when you take that into consideration and say to you today, one is proud of the uniform I wore, and many of us have worn with great pride. And our boys have done us proud. We must not lose this pride because of machinations. We must watch out. They were again bailed out. Somebody said very rightly about J.D. Vance, and he's saying 24 hours earlier he was saying we are not part of it. Then he says this thing, etc. Talked about it. So they've again been bailed out. They've been bailed out. And since my friend Alexis is here, let me tell you, you gave Rafael to the wrong people. Thank you.